Well, I really want to be able to hear from you, Tim, Kristy, our amazing other firm owners and Wize mentors. Now, we often say this a lot in Wize: hire slow and act fast. And of course, the screening process can't take too long. I've heard from some comments from firm owners that if you're going to take too long trying to screen a person, we might lose that opportunity. So it's definitely something that we feel there are a few emotions and psychological things that are challenging us to deviate from our process of following the hire slow and act fast. But wanting to hear from you, Kristy, your experiences with one of them, at least being hiring a client manager, hiring many great team members. You've been able to practice this in reality so many times. Talk to us a bit about this hiring slow and act fast. How should we understand it better?
Not that I burn through staff, but we are in the growth phase. Yes, we did. Late December, I needed to find a new client manager. And that was a big position to fill. And it took me a good few months to find the right person. But as you say, Thomas, we don't want to go slow in reacting to people as they come in through the application process. So I was constantly reviewing candidates that came through, constantly clearing space to have interviews, because I wanted to keep the momentum going with candidates who came through. Because in the past, I had gone slowly with senior bookkeeper offshore, and I nearly missed out on him because he'd been offered another job in the time it took me to decide, was he the right fit for me? So, it is following that process, following the bouncing ball along and not deviating, because I had plenty of candidates and I was getting a bit desperate. I was a bit tired from being pulled back into the full workload. And I had some candidates who ticked one or two boxes, but not all. And I really wanted to just start thinking of throwing someone at the problem, but it wasn't the right move. And after, I think, nearly 4 months, we found a great candidate who feels like she's been with us forever and will be with us for a long time, I hope. So it is worth the wait. There's nothing worse than the cost of a mishire. We've talked about it before. We've got some IP in the Wize Vault to help you see just how much the cost of a mishire can impact your business. So just stay the course, but also get rid of wrong hires. If you do let someone in through the door that isn't the right fit, don't allow them to fester in your business, because it can affect the morale and culture of the other team members you've got by having the wrong person come in.
That's such a great point. The last one you had, we put so much effort into having a good, clean, least semi-scientific approach to a hiring process to keep things consistent. Yet it can be our existing team members that can throw the whole process off. So I think this phrase used to be hire slow, fire fast, but I guess act fast as in we shouldn't take our time too long to react to our hires. So now, Kristy, what would you say in a situation where a firm is challenged to not hire slow? Like we're in a situation, say, where we're running out of time. I need someone in the seat ASAP right now. How do we still try to have a good hiring process, yet, we're challenged with these forces, our emotional forces?
Another way of looking at the resources you've got on your team. I know that we've talked to some firm owners in the past where their production team has been stretched and they just can't find the right person. So look outward to your admin team. What can you delegate from your production team to your admin division to take some of that load off? Just continue looking at what you can push down, what you can push across, and not throw a body at the problem. Maybe if you're in a real pinch, you might need to look at resource sharing with someone, but that's sort of a short-term fix. If you can continue looking at refining your processes, are there a couple of steps that don't need to be done because you get the result elsewhere? Just continue looking at how you can improve things as you wait for that new right person to come along.
I hear you loud and clear. It's basically do everything but pull the trigger on a candidate if it deviates from it. Just use everything else in the firm and get some short-term solutions, everything but succumbing to a desperate hire.
Yeah, just as you the other week, I think, Thomas, reached out in the Wize tribe that you happen to have some capacity with a team member. So you put it out there to the community if anyone was drowning in work, that you had some capacity to help for a short-term solution. There's always ways around it without making a mishire or a fast, incorrect hire.
Yeah, we don't want to rush into it. Thank you for that, Kristy. And great insight. And Tim, wanting to hear from you, how have you seen hiring slow, act fast play out for yourself and the firms you've worked with? You know, you've been able to build up 3 incredible teams within your firm, and you're going on to your 4th. You worked on hiring some incredibly senior people into your firm. How have you seen that? What does this mean to you, and how have you seen it play out for yourself?
Yeah, hire slow. People don't like to think of hiring slow in this market. I think we need someone right now. I needed someone yesterday. Hire slow to me just means vet the candidate, go through the Wize talent process and make sure that you've done everything you can in terms of, due diligence to make sure that the person you're bringing on board will be able to do the role. And the flip side of making sure they can do the role is really that leadership piece, making sure that you or whoever is in charge of that team positions the person so that they can do their job. One of the most common things I hear from firms I work with is we're coming to the end of probation period, and we have probation period for a reason. I never used to use it in my firm, and I have, since meeting Ed and Jamie. One of the most common things I hear is, I say at the end of probation period, so how's the person going? Can they do the role? And the owner will say to me, oh, I'm not really sure. And I say, well, how can you not know? It's been 3 months or 5 months or whatever it is. Well, they're not playing them in position. There's no leadership, or they're not being managed, that they haven't been given specifics on how to do their role or how they fit in the team. And you're setting them up to fail. If I don't know in the first month or so if they can do the role that I've hired them to do, I'm not positioning them. And so, probation might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, whatever it is. But the important thing is, for me, I know within the first few weeks if they're going to work out or not. And it might be a weird thing to kind of brag about, I guess, but we have had folks, in the last few years, since I started doing it the Wize way, we have had folks who didn't pass probation. That's not an admission to failure. That's part of the system. Part of the filtering process is probation. Probation is part of the hiring process, if that makes sense. It's your insurance policy. It's way, way, way easier to build a business with the right people on board than with people who just don't quite make the cut, but you don't have the guts to move them on. And I've seen all kinds of issues in my own firm and in other firms arise from people leaving people in a role that they're just not suited for. It just provides all kinds of pain in the long term. So as difficult as those conversations are about kind of saying to someone, you didn't make it, I would say you've got to have them. And not just for you and the business, but for the teams. The last thing I'll say on that is, one of the elements that I think is probably underrated or underspoken about when we talk about hiring is the effect it will have on the team. And Jamie mentioned before, keeping staff is just as important as finding the right ones. I couldn't agree more with that. And there's nothing worse than bringing someone in who just rubs your existing team the wrong way. Sure, you want your teams to have enough capacity to take on the work and to do the existing client work that you've got. But I am so protective of my culture and my teams and their well-being that even if someone ticks a lot of the boxes, they still have to get on, not with me, but with the team, because they're working with that team every day. And so, when you've got a good thing going, that hire slow process, again, just rings true. I want to make sure that people who come on board will not make the work experience of my existing staff, who I want to protect and keep, worse, like make it worse, but only make it better. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But yeah, just have the courage to act fast if you're not sure about it. And not sure is the key thing there. You'll either know it's working or you won't be sure. If you're not sure, follow your gut. You probably need to act fast on that one, would be my advice.
And, an interesting thing that you mentioned there, Tim, about protecting your culture, because on the flip side, I've also been able to witness working with firms where they followed the Wize talent process. They tested, they reference checked, they performed the interview with the interview guys. So they followed the right steps.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're bringing good people into their firm, yet it's their existing team that is the problem. So that might be something that's complex to navigate, because the issue here seems to not be the hiring. So I'm not sure if this might even be a hiring situation, but The issue is not that the hire is wrong, but it's like you're throwing the people into a blender almost inside your existing teams. What's your advice for dealing with this? Because that's quite common and normal for firms to go.
Totally. This is a really quick piece of advice. Get your deep and narrow team set up. So one common one, this is just a real quick piece of advice. One common one I see is the owner comes to me and they want to withdraw from the senior client manager position, but they don't have a production manager yet, and they're doing all the reviews and they're working crazy hours. I always say to them, you might have ants in your pants and you might want to get out of that client manager seat ASAP. And I understand that, but you're not going to be able to find an employee to work 70 hours a week. Set up the team before you withdraw from that client manager position. Get that production manager on board, because you don't want to give your mess to someone else. You want to set the team up and give that no chaos, that controlled, organized team to someone else, not the other way around. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've seen it a lot, Thomas. Just make sure that teams are set up before you remove from those crucial roles. And by the way, it's much easier for you to set the team up when you're heading up the team than to hire someone and say, oh, we're still in the middle of a change management process, and then try to get this new person who's new to the business to try to make all these changes for you. So yeah, just first things first, I think Ed and Jamie like to say, from Stephen Covey. I hope that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, something you said there is something I've also heard from firms a few times, where they sort of have this expectation that the new hire is also going to bring with them the capacity to do change management within their firm. But actually, they're a lot more softer and fragile than they actually need to be nurtured and led. I think if they have the ability to come into a firm fresh and start doing change management, I think they should be some sort of an executive in a Fortune 500 company or something.
Rob job.
So just, a final thing I want to hear from you is, what expectations should we have towards a new hire? We followed the process, we checked everything out. What other expectations should we have about this person, especially if we're not hiring a CEO, to $1 billion?
No, look, this is a good one. It might sound counterintuitive, but this is coming straight from Jamie. One of the biggest lessons Jamie's taught me is to be patient. If you get the hiring process right, you get the right candidate, you're not going to see immediate 100% them hitting 100% of their role, doing it 100%. It just takes time to get onboarded. I've seen this in my own firm. Even if they're the right fit, they're the right candidate, it takes a couple of months for them to really click in and for you to really start to see those results. This is where it gets a bit of a balancing act. I'm not saying if you're not sure about someone and it's because they were the wrong person, you don't give them the benefit of the doubt indefinitely, but you can get the best person in the world. It's not a silver bullet, because people take time. Maybe the team takes time to warm up to that person. Maybe that person just takes a bit extra time getting across all your systems and procedures and whatnot. So yeah, it's not like software you can plug it in, it goes from day one. People take time. So there's a bit of a balancing act there. I've never seen it click immediately. It's always a bit of an introductory process. Again, that's what probation's for. By the end of probation, in my firm, it's only 3 months because we really don't want to muck around. But by the end of probation, they have to be 80 to 90% of the way there. And I've got to be confident that they'll be able to get to 100. Jamie nailed it on the head there. Attitude is 100% everything. Look, don't listen. Actions speak louder than words. Couldn't echo what Jamie just said enough there. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tim. In the basics of what hire slow and act fast mean, but also some complex and nuanced situations where we're challenged to do something different here.